What is up, everybody? Bryce here from Whitmix. Today, actually, you know what? Welcome to Hawaiian Shirt Friday. For those of you that have been joining us in previous webinars, you're probably already familiar. We do Hawaiian Shirt Fridays. So I'm Bryce. Most of you know me. I've got with me Evan Kemper, who is our applications engineer here at Whitmix. And we also have a special guest today. So we actually have Casey White from Annex Dent. Casey, I'll let you do a little introduction if you'd like.
Hey guys, so we always love working with Whitmix, and this is definitely a new experience for us, but I'm glad you guys have already worked out the kinks and everything. Obviously, I didn't get the memo about Hawaiian shirt, but I thought I'd fun it up with the kitty cat riding a unicorn. Um, Annexstent loves to work with Whitmix, and our materials really work well together. For characterization, you can use other materials, but it's just the ones that, like Bryce in particular, has done all the testing on, and he preferred in his hands the way this one works. So if you have any questions afterwards, we'll get to them throughout, and then also I'll give you my email address and link our website so you can get in touch with us that way as well. But thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Thank
our
you.
pleasure. We couldn't do characterization without the infamous Casey, so that
Thank
was a
you.
necessity.
Well, thanks.
So
It really helps break up my day.
yeah, I feel you. Hope everyone's doing great. So if you've been joining us this week, we've been doing digital dentures, primarily 3D printed. So Monday we went through scanning and we got into kind of setting up the design. Wednesday we did pretty much just design. We did a little bit of nesting as well. And then today we're going to talk about characterizing. So I have here a 3D printed denture. So I used the D-Tax for the base plate, and then the teeth are the Dentka. Just because that's what I had laying around. Now, this is going to be kind of a learning experience for everybody because I have yet to characterize on the D-Tax. The D-Tax compared to the Dentka is a little bit less translucent. It's a little more opaque. And the shade's just kind of a little different. So this is going to be kind of a learning experience for everybody. So we'll see what happens. So I have already taken it from just coming out of the printer with supports to I went ahead and bonded the teeth and everything just because we have an hour to an hour and a half today, so I don't know that we would have time to go through every single step, but just as a recap, what after these come out of the printer, you're going to do 5 minutes in an alcohol wash, isopropyl alcohol dirty bath for 5 minutes, then 5 minutes in a clean bath, and then let them fully dry, and then I remove the supports. So for the most part, you can just kind of pinch off the supports. They actually come off like super easy. And then I use a handpiece, and I use just like a carbide oval burr, and then I use these. We sell these here at Whitmix. They're like Scotch-Brite rotary tool brushes. They work super well after you've kind of smoothed out the supports a little bit with the carbide. Come back over with this little tool, and it works pretty much awesome. So yeah, so after I smooth out all the supports, I then bond the teeth. So I use a little pipette, just like a little disposable. You can get these on Amazon, probably like 5,000 of them for $1 or something like that. And I just put a little bit of resin in each of the tooth pockets, and then I hold the teeth down, and I use a little light cure flashlight, like this to bond them. So that's kind of a quick rundown, and then I do my final denture, like my final denture cure in glycerin in the Uvitron. If you want more specific details on that, let us know. I'm just trying to kind of hurry along because I want to get into the actual characterization today, because I think that's probably what everybody's the most interested in. So basically, we're ready to start with our characterization. So this has gone through the final cure and everything. So my webcam is on this like nice little like bendy little arm thing, so I can kind of show you. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So I kind of show you my little work area. Maybe try to make it a little bit taller. There we go. Hey, look at that. Okay, so first I'm just going to show you everything that I'm going to be working with today. Obviously, I'm going to be using the Annex Dent Annex Gum composites. These are my favorite. I've used the GC and I've used these. I like these the most. I find them the easiest to work with, but that's nothing against GC. This is just the annex gum is what I prefer. I have a whole kit here. So if you go on Annex Dent's website, they have various kits that you can get. Most of them are going to include some combination of the composites. So you've got paste, which are the high viscosity, more like sculptable, if you will. You've got the gingiva flow. These are lower viscosity, and you can actually use kind of like a brush with these. And then you've got the super low viscosity, the paint flows. These all come in various colors and shades. The ones that I primarily am going to be using today are going to be, it's going to be the light pink paste, the purple pink paste, the dark pink paste, and I'm going to be using probably light pink flow, dark pink flow, and then red, purple, and cream in the paint viscosities. Also, what we're going to be using, we have model LC liquid. So this is just, you can use this for a lot of different things, I guess. Casey, you want to go over the model?
Yeah.
LC?
So model LC is basically just a modeling liquid that you use to weigh your instruments. If you've worked with composites in the past, you know that they have a tendency to be kind of sticky, especially with metal instruments. And so it can stick to your instrument and not stick to the denture. And if you just, lightly apply a little bit to your handle or to your spatula or whatever you're using beforehand, then that'll kind of negate some of that. I also wanted to mention really quickly that we have a kit. The kit that you're using is called the Digital Denture Characterization Kit. Go figure. And I think the one that we have online uses orange pink, but if we know that it's somebody from Whitmick's course that wants to use it, we will trade out the orange pink for a purple pink.
Awesome.
So just
cool
a little
beans.
Info.
Awesome. Some of the other liquids we're going to be using, the Bond LC. This is going to be actually the first thing we're going to do momentarily. We're going to apply a bonding layer. And then I'm going to be using the nano varnish. So this is kind of like the final clear coat that we're going to put after we're completely done. I don't know that we're going to get to this today. We'll see. We'll see how we do time-wise with everything. Some of the basic tools I'm using, I don't use anything fancy. Some people use like these really fancy application tools, but I don't have any of that. I use some just very simple tools. So there's companies that make different variations of these, but the primary thing are going to be these like silicone tip brushes. So it's almost like a rubbery silicone material. These are from Smileline. These are really nice. These are like the top of the line ones, and they work really well. You can also get other versions. These are from American Dental Supply. These come in like a 5-pack with different tip shapes. These work well as well. And then I'm gonna be using just a regular, just a number 1 synthetic brush, and just a metal instrument, kind of for scraping and kind of laying some composite on my denture. The other tools that I'm going to be using, if we get to it today, are going to be these micro brushes. These are what I use to actually apply the nano varnish. And then finally, let's see if I can turn my camera to show it. Over here is the cure box, the light box from Annex Dent. So this is what I'm going to be using to cure, as well as my little handheld light as well. All right, so let's get going. Let me kind of try to get this somewhat centered for everybody. Okay, so like I said, the first thing I'm going to be doing is applying the bonding agent. So this is the Bond LC. A little bit of this goes a long way, so don't pour a ton of it out. I'm just going to basically do a few drops, especially because I'm only going to be doing probably I don't know, maybe 4 teeth for the purposes of this demonstration. So I'm going to use a micro brush, and I'm just going to apply a super thin layer.
And that's another reason why it's a light cure material, so you don't want to pour out too much on your palette or it'll harden before you get your entire denture painted. And
Yep,
That's
super good
just a
point.
waste. Yeah.
So I'm just doing a super thin layer. I don't want any kind of pooling or anything. That's not good.
And the Bond LC is a bonding agent that can be used on PMMA. It can be used composite to composite if you want to add more. It's not just for printed dentures. It can be used on traditional acrylic. So that's a pretty good bonding agent for a myriad of uses.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, so I've got a super thin layer. This is going to go in my light box for, I'm going to do 90 seconds on the C mode, which is like there's 3 different modes on this light box. There's C, F, and L. C is like basically what we're going to use for a bonder, and then L is what we're going to be using for actual layering for like the composites. So I'm just going to start this. I'm going to let this go 90 seconds, minute and a half. And let's see if we have any questions that we can field.
So we did have one question from Ronald. Can we reline this material?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what's up, Evan?
I was just gonna see if he was talking about the denture material or adding on to the composite, but I'd assume he's probably talking about the denture-based material.
Probably. Yeah, you can reline these. The people have been having some difficulty with soft reline materials sticking, but hard reline materials, from what I can tell, are working pretty well. But there may be some soft reliners out there that people are using that are working. It's hard to say. I'm not on the clinical side. I'm on the lab side of things.
We did have another. Oh, go ahead if you still had something to add.
Go for it.
All right, we did have one other question from Maria, who missed Wednesday, but can you do some characterization prior to printing, like festooning? So yes, you can do pretty much any amount of characterization as far as kind of the contour. Of course, it's all going to still be the same color as far as the denture base, but you have the full sculpt toolkit at your disposal in 3Shape to sculpt the base.
And then with the light unit too, you don't have to use that particular one, but the important thing is to make sure it doesn't produce a bunch of heat, and it's between 350 and 500 nanometers.
Yep. Cool. Casey, here's one for you. How much is the N-Extent curing unit? What do these run? Do you know?
So that one is like right around 2100. And with everything that's going on right now, we are having a hard time getting them in from Germany. But the Autoflash is the one we've really been loving lately because it cuts your curing time like in more than half.
Wow.
So
that's pretty sweet.
It's awesome.
Cool. And a lot of labs, I think, already probably, I mean, maybe not a lot of labs, but some labs already have an Autoflash because it's a widely used curing unit. So
Correct.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Like for what you just did, it would have taken about 10 seconds to cure.
That's pretty sweet.
That's nice.
So if you have something, especially like if you're in-house or you have like you're just firing a bunch of these out, it really cuts down in your production time.
Do you use nitrogen?
Not on the bonders, but when you get, or the nano varnish, but when you get to the composite, then we do.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Brian asks, what about Bondsworth TrueSoft? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know which specific ones reline materials might or might not work. I don't have that kind of information, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to start with some pastes. I'm going to start with light pink. I do this differently than a lot of people do. Most people start like dark to light, go dark to light. I actually go light to dark. I don't know why. I'm weird. But it's just kind of the way that I do it. So I'm going to just extrude a little bit, not a whole lot. I don't want to go overboard because it's really hard to, or / impossible to put back in the tube after you've taken it out.
And also it will light cure if you leave it on your palette exposed and it's a big chunk.
Yep. I'm gonna get just a little bit of modeling liquid, just a tad, because I can tell that this, I haven't used it in a little while, so it's just a little bit
hard.
Yeah, a little hard. And I'm actually gonna grab, I've got some gloves here.
And when it's like that, you can warm it up. There's a couple different ways. We have a warmer you can use. Some people just like microwave a cup of water and then put the tool or put the composite in a bag and let it just kind of heat up. You can put it on top of your burnout oven, you can rub it, and that'll just help it flow a little better.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of this light pink, and I'm gonna start with my roots. So I'm actually gonna just roll this out a little bit, kind of like so.
Can you bring your denture down just a little bit? There you go.
Just there.
Sorry, my bad. And I'm actually gonna start just kind of moving this. Let me see if I can get better lighting in here, possibly. I'm just gonna start molding this in place.
So you start out like with the making a little roll right along that transition.
Yep, yep,
And
right
then
along that
pull.
tooth gingiva junction, and then I'm gonna kind of draw it down. I'm gonna try turning off my overhead light in here really quickly to see if I can get better light. Give me one sec. Let's see if there's any questions, maybe Evan, while I'm doing that.
Yeah, we did have a question come in from Craig. Can the annex dent colors be mixed to easily create a custom color guide and shading?
Yes. And that's part of the reason why Bryce, when he gets going, does it the way he does. If you don't have to cure, especially the paste in between, and that allows you to mix them a little better and model them so you don't have like a line of demarcation. So you get a lot more fluidity and it has more natural transitions in it. You can also mix it with other materials. Like I want to say a lot of people love the GC, I think it's like N23 or N24, and you can use the composites together to get like the most ideal customized shade.
All right, I don't know if that helped the shade, the color at all. It might not have, to be honest.
Not really. But maybe we can put like afterwards, take some photographs and
Yeah,
then post
absolutely.
that so you can see.
Yep.
You can sort of see. It's really kind of hard to tell, but I'm applying that light pink for my roots, and I'm just drawing it down. And I can use my cone, like my cone tipped brush, to kind of sculpt the emergence profile of those teeth, which is really kind of neat.
And the composite, for some reason, has less of a tendency to stick to the silicone. I may have already mentioned that, but I only had one cup of coffee today, so I can't remember.
That's funny. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little bit more light pink. Again, I'm going to roll it out so it's a little worm. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on my lateral. So I've just kind of laid it on there.
And this is where I like the fact that you do it backwards compared to how most other people do it, because it kind of proves that there's really no, as long as you follow the bonding protocols, let me say that, there's
Yep.
really no right or wrong way. If you respect the limitations of the material, the rest of it is completely subjective and up to your artistry.
Yeah.
So get funky with it, man.
Yeah, you know, when I first started doing this, I tried to go light to dark, and I was not happy with the results. I don't know, it's something about the way that I was doing it. Um, I didn't like it, and then I just started kind of working the other way from light to dark, and just found I liked the results a lot more. So that's what I just kind of came up with, my own little system of doing it. But yeah, there's no right or wrong way as long as you're following the proper chemical bonding protocols. In terms of the technique, it's just that, it's technique, and you can kind of come up with your own unique technique. That rhymed.
You're so good.
We had another question come in from Dan. why are composite trays normally black?
Probably contrast would be my guess. It contrasts well with the color of the composite. That'd be my guess. I mean, like this one I'm using is like just like a ceramic tray. It's white because I'm not cool and I don't have one of the super fancy ones. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's probably just it contrasts the color of the composite better would be my guess.
Do you think it has something to do with like reflecting and absorbing light, or
Maybe.
I don't
Uh,
really know either.
it could.
Some people just use like a tile even, because you don't. It's nice to have a tray. Like the Smile Line tray is really nice, and it has like silicone wells, so that way you
Yeah.
can put your bonders and stuff in that and have it just similar to what you're using.
Yeah.
But that one has a lid on it, and so I like the ones with the opaque lid or metal lid, like the Smile Line one is silver,
Hmm.
because you can, if you extruded too much material, you can always close it and put it back in a drawer somewhere, so that way
Yeah.
you didn't waste it.
Okay. Yeah, I see a ton of people using the Smile Line ones, and I think when we had one of our digital denture courses, I think I maybe used one. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I brought it.
I just yeah, it was sweet. I just don't have one personally.
Yeah.
So now what I'm doing, I'm just kind of looking at my contour because this is not just about color, it's all about contour. I don't want these roots to be like way over contoured because that's just not really going to feel right for the patient. So I'm just kind of looking at this from all angles to make sure I like my contour. And I do. I like where it's at. All right, so I'm gonna go on. Let's do the other two, our other central and our other lateral really quickly.
And now you haven't gone back and gotten more out of the composite tube, have you?
Uh-uh. No, this
So
is still
that's,
that the same little bit.
yeah, a testament to how little you really need.
Yeah, and really, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not supposed to do more than 1 millimeter per layer, right? And a total of 3 millimeters. Is that right? Are those numbers right?
Yeah, yeah. And because if you don't cure, if you get it too thick, like over a millimeter before you cure, then the light cannot fully penetrate, and then you might
Yeah.
have some delamination issues in the future.
Yeah, don't want that.
Yeah, definitely not.
So I'm just gonna carry on with these other two interior teeth quickly. Try to speed it up a little bit for everybody.
So basically, as you're doing this, I want to kind of go back to what we were talking about with the bonders and the different materials and stuff. Um, you really can't cure the Bond LC with a handheld unit. Like a
Hmm.
lot of people see those laying out when you're doing things and think that means that you can use it for everything. When you
Hmm.
see him use this throughout the process, it's literally just tacking the material on. For
Yeah.
your actual curing, you need a light unit, um, and they're not all created equal. But we're happy to kind of go through the process with you and let you know if that one works. I will tell you right now, everybody I talk to has a Triad, and it is no friend to composite or varnish or glazes at all.
Hmm.
It gets
Is that from Dentsply?
I feel real ignorant. I'm not really sure. I just know it's a unit that's been around forever, but man, that bad boy throws off a ton of heat and will
Okay.
basically just like, if you do any type of varnish or glaze in it, it'll boil it off, essentially, burn it off.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty messed up. So the other thing that you can do that's kind of nice, and I do this because I'm like I like contrast and I like texture. I'm going to use my cone shaped. I'm actually going to just kind of draw some texture into these roots. And I'm going to kind of over exaggerate that texture. And then by the time I finish and I come back with my nano varnish, it's gonna relieve it and reduce it a little bit. But I like texture. I don't know. I'm a texture guy. But a lot of this comes down to preference, both doctor patient preferences. Um, so yeah, I've got some nice texture in there. I'm gonna grab a little bit more light pink here, just a hair, to finish my other lateral.
Now, do you all sell any like blank I know Smileline has blank forms to make your own shade guide. Somebody had asked Evan earlier about creating your own custom shade tabs. Do you guys have anything like that?
Right now we don't, but that's definitely something we could look at implementing.
I was going to say we don't either.
Yeah.
And the reason we don't really do shade tabs with our Annex gum is because it really depends on what you put it on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's translucent enough that you have to take that into effect or
Yeah.
into consideration.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I guess, a lab could potentially create a custom shade guide for the base materials they're using and then the composite on top of it. But again, if you put this, just like Bryce was saying earlier, this is a DTAX base and he's probably going to get a totally, well, what he applies to, it's going to be totally different than what he would do to like Denka to get his end result.
Yep. So I am curious how this is going to turn out because, like I said, this is the first time I've characterized on DTAX, mainly because they either just got or are going to have, like any day now, their 510K on the Asiga printer, which we sell. So that's why I haven't done any characterization because it hasn't been an FDA. Gosh darn it, hasn't been an FDA approved appliance up to this point. So yeah, there we go.
Is your composite not cooperating?
Yes, sometimes it likes to get away from me a little bit. That's all
I
right.
say get you a little Model LC on there.
Yeah.
And that's something you want to use sparingly. I've heard people say, oh yeah, I just like mix it in with my paste to make a flowable. I'm like, well, we make a flowable for that purpose because it
Right.
changes up how it cures.
Exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
It's not manufacturer recommended.
Not kosher.
Yeah. Like I said, that's one of those limitations you need to respect.
All right, I'm just about done with my roots. Just a couple little finishing touches here, and then I'm going to spot cure it with my hand light. And like Casey mentioned earlier, I'm really only curing it enough with this little flashlight to basically just hold it in place. I'm going to do it away from my composites, even if they're closed. That still makes me nervous. So I'm just going to do it like back here. You can still see it in the frame though.
And also don't, if you enjoy your retinas, don't look directly at the light.
Yeah, definitely. We did have another question come in from Dr. Bird. Is it true Poly can be used for printed Dentka relines, and is there a specific light cure reline material usable in 3D printed Dentka dentures? So I'm looking at all the different Poly offerings from Colzer, and I think if you're talking about the traditional acrylic, then you could do a hard reline with it. Not a problem, but as far as like a soft reline, there have been issues with that, although I don't know that they actually have a soft reline material. And let's see, material used in a 3D printed Dentka denture. And I think, honestly, we're still kind of in those kind of early research and testing stages as far as the reline of printed materials goes, especially if you're talking about a light cure one. I don't know of any light cure reline materials right now. Do you know of any, Bryce or Casey?
Not off the top of my head.
For some reason I feel like Dentsply might make one, but I can't say for certain.
I was going to say we have one material, but it's not light cure, and I don't know. It's for repairs, but I don't know that it's for reline. I can't remember.
All right, so what I'm doing now, I got some of the purple pink paste and I rolled it out and I kind of lined the peripheral roll with it a little bit. Now this is going to be interesting because on the Dentka, this purple pink is a lot darker than the actual printed base plate, and on this DTAX, it's like almost the same color. So I'm curious how this is going to turn out. This will be kind of interesting to see. Like I said, this will be kind of a fun experiment for everyone. This is new to me as well on this new printed material. So now I'm just going to kind of draw it down to kind of meet my root structures that I just sculpted in. And right now it just looks very flat and plain, but I'm just gonna get the material where I want it to start, and then I'm gonna worry about like actually sculpting in, more anatomy. So
And
right now I'm just,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
no,
I was
go
gonna
for
say,
it.
as people are doing this, keep in mind too that once the material is polymerized, it changes shade just a
Yeah,
little bit. I do have that available. So again, at the end with my email address, if you would like me to send you a slide that shows polymerized versus unpolymerized, I'd be happy to.
yeah, that's a good point. These will lighten up once they're polymerized. Yeah,
I just remember in
shade
some of
will
the
lighten.
courses, people think, oh God, there's not enough contrast. It looks just like the
Mm-hmm.
base did. And then once they cure it, they were like, oh wow, okay, I maybe
Yeah,
overdid the dark pink or the purple pink.
yeah.
We did have a couple questions or suggestions come in while you were working on that. The first one, and I'm going to kind of direct this to you, Casey, is have you noted any allergy reactions to the materials?
Not
As
that I've
far
heard.
as, okay. And
I mean, it's
as
a
far
methyl
as,
methacrylate, so
right,
if they have issues with that, then they will. But if you cure it fully and seal it fully, you generally take those chances down. But it's always a possibility.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's a similar concern with the denture base material too, because it is a methacrylate as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
if you don't follow the proper curing instructions in the IFU, then there could be residual monomer. And yeah, same thing as a traditional denture that's not been done correctly.
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
So we had another one from Dan suggesting that we design a small segment of tissue that you can print, and then the labs could create their own custom shade tab. And that actually is something that we looked at sometime last year, and I think Corey had a initial concept of a kind of a about an inch long piece of base with a tooth that you could either have separate or stick together. And it just was one of those things that due to other projects we were working on just kind of hit the back burner. But maybe that's something that we can look back to while we're kind of a little slower.
Yeah.
That's a
But
smart
that is a good
idea.
idea. It is a good
Yeah.
idea.
If it's the Dan I'm thinking, he's usually full of good ideas.
Yeah, it is.
Dan the man.
Everybody loves him.
So I'm just working away here.
Are you still with the purple pink?
I'm still at the purple pink, yeah.
So we did have a comment from Craig about the Triad light cure material, even originally could be used as a reline material. So to answer Dr. Bird's question, then Triad's an option. And so he said they would even do intraoral border molding with it and then light cure it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought
It
Dentsply
is
made
pretty
one. They,
malleable. So
they come in like those sheets, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they're like those reline sheets. Yeah, I've actually used those a little bit. Actually, believe it or not, you know what I use those for? Um, which is an alternative to if you want like a super cheap option instead of like composite for like maybe like an economy denture. You can actually use those to veneer on your printed denture. Do a thin veneer, and it looks pretty close to like Lucitone. It's fibered, so again, that's like economy, like more of an economy line, but you can do it. Kind of cool. All right, so I'm gonna hit this with my light.
And the light is another preference thing right now because, like I said, initially when somebody had asked if you can make your own custom shades, some people will do a full arch with the paste and not even tack cure at once because they want to move those materials together more. But that's again personal preference. The material doesn't slump, so that's something that you're able to do.
Yeah. Okay, now what I'm gonna do, so it may be hard for everybody to see, but what I have now, where I kind of have like areas in between my roots without composite, so I'm gonna come back with my dark pink and apply in these areas, just a little bit, not a lot, just enough to create a little bit of contrast. I'm just going to get a tiny bit here. That might even be too much, but that's okay.
It's not half a tube, so you're doing better than most.
Yeah, I've seen people like just pull a bunch of this material out and then like literally 3/4 of it gets wasted.
Yeah, no matter how many times you say just a little bit, it's always, which is good. I mean, that means they're excited. So
It's like
I'll
a
take it.
fire hose. All right. So I'm basically just using the dark pink to blend in between my purple and my light pink. This I'll usually just spend a couple of minutes on. This step doesn't take me too terribly long to get through.
We have a lot of people say too that they have to set a timer when they get to the characterization part because they get so into just playing with the colors. They could sit there for an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah.
But if it is more of like an economy, but a little like economy plus denture, you really probably don't want to spend, all that time doing this stuff. So we realize that.
All right, so at this point, for the most part, I'm done with kind of the bulk of my paste. The last thing I'm going to do is my frenum, like my central frenum here. I'm going to actually sculpt in. So I'm going to use light pink, just a hair. This requires very, very little composite to make. A little bit of modeling liquid. And then I'm going to roll that out. You're probably noticing a trend here. I like to roll out my composites a lot. And that's like a really, really thin, super thin. Actually, it could probably even be a little bit thinner than that.
And definitely using gloves for this step is for any of this because of the methacrylate, like we were talking about earlier. It's just safer.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm very carefully gonna pick that up and I'm just gonna lay it on my denture. Oh, you can really see that. Look at that.
Yep.
And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get some modeling liquid on my cone shaped so to prevent sticking. And I'm just gonna start morphing this and kind of coming up with a curve that to me looks organic, looks natural, but doesn't look like too terribly, I guess, overdone. And I could literally spend 20 minutes here just moving this thing around until I find something I like. But for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to try to speed it up and not bore everybody too much. So that shape will probably work just fine. And there's different ways you can do this. You can make these nice and curvy and bulbous and wormy like mine is. You can make them more like almost more like triangular almost. Again, this is kind of where art comes into it, patient preference comes into it, and they might not even want this added in at all, which is fine. Ultimately they're the ones we're trying to please. So if they don't want it, then don't put it in.
And the nice thing about the composite too, as a way to characterize, is that it's so forgivable. If you do something and just have like a moment and just totally jack it up, you just cure it. Always remove the smear layer before you take a burr to it, or the inhibition layer. Otherwise it'll gunk up your burr real bad, but you can just shave it right off. And then if you find something that's not characterized enough, you obviously clean it, and you can add more Bond LC, put more characterization back on.
Yep.
And we recommend people, what did we decide last time, Bryce? They go to like Google search and you have to look up human gingiva. Is that the one that we decided got the best results?
Don't Google human tissue.
Right, that's the one that was not good.
Don't do that. especially if you're at work.
Yeah. I might have told like 40 people to do that at one class and then quickly got figured out that that was not the right information.
Yeah, yeah. So you can see I went ahead and I added in my frenum. You can kind of see it. And if you really want to get crazy with it, if you really want to like make it pop, one other thing you can do is you can grab a little bit of the cream paint. Now the paint can be really, depending on how you use it, can be kind of hard to work with. So it doesn't like to cure as a surface layer, is what I've found. And it's going to depend on the curing unit you use. So typically, the unit that I'm using for my final cure is actually the Uvitron, the same unit that I'm using for my dentures. And I'm doing them in glycerin again. So the whole thing's going to go in glycerin. And I found that if you cure with the Uvitron in the glycerin, that it will actually cure these paints and the flowables really, really well as a surface layer. I think probably there's probably less photopolymer reactors in the lower viscosities, so they require a more powerful unit to like cure them fully. Well, that would be my guess, but I'm
The
no
paints,
scientist.
the paints are meant to be for internal characterization, and they are a lot more. People get the paints and the flows mixed up. They're actually color coded differently on the syringe. The paints have like a pink ring around them, as do the pastes, and then the paints have a purple one. They are pigmented so much that like a little dot of purple or red, it looks bright blood red. So
Yep.
I've even seen people on the frenum take the red or the purple and go along either side of it. But you're basically using the cream as like a highlighter.
Yep, I'm just making it pop.
Okay.
I mean, you don't. I mean, obviously, you don't have to do this. This is just if you really want to like kind of exaggerate that freedom. And yeah, let's go ahead, like you were just saying. We can take a little bit of our red paint.
Can you lift your palette up and show them how stinking red it is? Because a little goes a long way with these. Yeah.
Super red. It's like blood, like deep blood red. And a tiny bit of this on my brush is going to go a really long way. And yeah, if I want to, I can come along this this frenum, and I can use a little bit of red to highlight it, give it a little bit more of a lifelike appearance.
There are so many ways to do this.
Yeah. That's why I love these composites so much. There's just so much versatility with them. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see because this webcam is not like really the greatest. So it's really hard to see the color. It just kind of all looks orange. But yeah, I'm gonna hit this with a light briefly.
And it's real nice when you have music going and you can just
Yeah,
really get in your flow.
yeah, you can jam. It's the best. Okay, so I've got the bulk of my paste done at this point. So what I'm going to start doing now is adding some color contrast. So to do that, what I like to do, I'm going to grab my, where is it? Here it is. My dark pink gingiva flow. And I'm going to mix that in with a little bit of my red paint to get just a little bit darker contrast than the regular dark pink gives me.
And as you said, most people do this step first. They mix the dark pink flow or the orange pink flow. The orange pink has the most opacity to it. So if you're trying to kind of block something out a little bit, mixing that with the red will give you a nice bloody base. Like that's one of people's favorite things on Pecton to do, just because it makes it look more natural with the bone and then the bloody layer.
Yeah.
But you're special.
I'm different. I'm different. I've never been much of a rule follower.
That's why we like you.
All right, so I'm just going and adding in some of this kind of it's pretty thick slurry, believe it or not. Even though I added in the paint, it's pretty thick. It's thin enough that I can use my brush, however. And I'm just going to start to create some color contrast, some division in between my roots.
How are you feeling, since we're having a hard time seeing the contrast, the difference between this material and the typical Dentka stuff that we have done it on?
You know, so far I like it. I feel like I feel like my roots are blending a little bit better because there's less translucency.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like so far it's been easier to blend. But I'd have to do, I mean, I'd really have to like sit down and do like 5 or 10 of these to
To
really kind of
really.
get, yeah, to really get a good feel for it.
Now, do they come in like a darker base
Yeah,
color and
so
stuff as well?
I think they have, I want to say they've got like maybe four shades. Honestly, I'm not nearly as familiar with these as I am with the Denka.
And how many shades are available in that one?
Four.
Okay.
There's light pink, original pink, reddish pink, and um,
Don't you have a purple?
yeah, it's like an ethnic shade.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they call it brown, like brownish pink or dark pink or purple pink. I can't remember.
And that's a nice little seg. So we also have other colors. So we do have a brown pink and we do have a purple pink. So if you live in an area, like I'm just outside of Atlanta, so I have one clinician here in my area that basically strictly sees only African American patients. And so I come in with this knowledge of how to do like your typical just everyday white dude gingiva. And I was like, okay, so what I thought you needed is not at all what you need. So we can customize things too if you need them to be. But the purple pink and the brown pink mixed together on that purple base look really good.
Nice.
Mhm.
Okay, so basically where I'm at now, I'm gonna actually paint in my some veins. So what I'm gonna use this little micro brush right here, and you can see I've kind of got it like flared out. So I want to get like I want to use as many of these individual fibers as I can to draw these veins in. So you can't see it on my webcam because it sucks, but I actually textured in basically channels where I can paint in my veins. And this is like I really love doing this, and this to me is how you can really add in some really lifelike looking appearance to these. So I'm dipping just very slightly in my red paint, and then I'm actually just going to draw these down, draw this red down into those channels that I textured in the paste.
Have you always done it this way?
You know, this is something I've been playing around with lately. The other
Okay.
thing, I mean, the way that I used to do it, and I still do it, I shouldn't say used to because I still do a little bit more, is actually draw them in individually with my number
The
one
brush.
brush.
Okay.
Yeah, so get some on the, actually clean that off.
I've had people say that they use like a really narrow, like a 6 or an 8 endo file and do the same thing, just kind of like drag it through the
Oh
red
yeah,
paint and then drag it across their paste.
yeah, that would probably work really well actually.
Mm.
Dry off my brush. But yeah, I can get just a little bit on my number one brush and just draw these veins into those channels that I sculpted in. Do we have any questions, Evan?
Yeah, we have two that have come in. One kind of goes back to when you were talking about what burrs or using burrs to remove material. And the question was, what design is best? Like crosscut, diamond. What do you find works best for removing the material or not clogging up?
For like if it's already been cured and
Yeah.
we need to like strip it off.
hmm Or contour, I guess.
Um, Man, probably just carbide, I would say. I just use carbide. I mean, this stuff isn't that
Yeah.
hard.
Okay.
It's not like zirconia.
And the other question was, what kind of bonding material was used to cement the teeth with the base? What is the light used and time to cure it? So Bryce covered that earlier in the webinar, but the material that's used is the same resin that's in the base, or that you print the base out of, and then he's using a UV flashlight to do the initial cure to set them in, but then there's a final cure after that in the Uvatron IntelliRay 600.
Yeah. All right, I'm cool with that. You guys can't really see it, but I promise you I can.
Yeah, we did have somebody comment that, the webcam resolution through, the webinar is kind of poor. Can you post a pic later? Yeah, I think we're going to be posting it on our WhipMix Facebook page.
Probably not this one though, because I don't have a Uvatron here, so it'll have to be a different one that I've characterized.
Oh, for your final, and then you don't have the like the cover gel either.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha. So that's where Bryce usually takes it and puts it in the full glycerin bath in the Uvatron. And the reason that he can put that in there and the composite doesn't completely distort is because something about that bowl of glycerin like deflects some of the heat. If you don't have that, then you would use cover gel or basically like a water-based lubricant you can get from the drugstore, and just make sure that all of your composite is fully covered, and then put it in a light box and cure, depending on your box, anywhere from like 5 to 8 minutes. And that'll remove it. Don't alcohol it off, because if you alcohol, a lot of times it makes the composite kind of look white, have some specks in it. So what we tell people is basically just warm water and soap, and you can do a toothbrush and scrub it. We did it in that hotel, or the conference room at the hotel, in the bathroom. I mean, it doesn't have to be super fancy. You just want to get all of that like slimy feeling material off. And then if your composite still feels tacky, you need to do it again, because it will eat through any varnish or glaze you put on afterwards.
Yeah.
We had another question. Can the resin, and I think we might address this in two different parts, but can the resin material be used for a partial such as Valplast? So I think we could address that in denture base material, and then also can the composites be used on something like Valplast? So first, I would go ahead and say, as far as the denture base resin, you wouldn't, I mean, probably not in the sense of a flexible partial like Valplast. It's not that flexible and would probably break. There you can do 3D printed Valplast, but that's a whole different story, and you need a different kind of printer. And then Casey, does this material work on Valplast, or, I mean, that's more of a nylon?
It's kind of like what you just said. From what I understand too, getting anything to adhere to Valplast is kind of an issue. And with it being as flexible as it is, you will have some like cracking and delamination issues. We have had people do it on like traditional partials that they want to cover up a metal clasp, but if it's something that's getting a lot of bending and a lot of wearing, you probably want to avoid it.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you could maybe do it. You could do like an acrylic partial. So you can 3D print an acrylic partial out of the the base plate resin, and then print the teeth and bond those. As long as it's thick enough. Again, an acrylic, you don't want those to flex. They are not flexible partials. So as long as if you're printing an acrylic partial that's thick enough that it's not going to flex and bend, yeah, I mean, I would say go for it. Yeah, definitely what Casey said. If it bends, it's going to crack. Okay, so let's see. We're right at about an hour. So at this point, after I do, typically my final cure is going to be 4 minutes in glycerin in the Uvatron. That's going to take care of that oxygen inhibition layer. And then from there, I'm going to, like Casey said, wash it off, and then I'm going to nano varnish. And that's pretty much it. Let's see if we have
And
any.
just be sure that your dentures dry before you apply the nano varnish, because if you trap that moisture under there, that could cause issues as well.
Yeah. Gotta scroll all the way down. Let's see. Any more questions coming in?
Well, I'll just go ahead while you guys are doing that and say we're offering for the digital denture characterization kit on our website 10% off until next Friday. We do this at all the courses that we hold together as kind of a thank you for attending this. So if you use the code WatchMeWhip, then that will give you 10% off of the digital denture characterization kit.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
You know, we like to keep it funky. If it's something that you want the purple pink like Bryce used instead of the orange pink that comes stock in the kit, then just there's a place for notes and just let us know you'd like to swap, same price. And then my email address is Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, at Anaxdent, ANAXDENT, USA.com. If you have any questions we didn't address or something you didn't really want to ask on a public forum, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And I'm not really doing anything else right now, so I've got lots of time.
Awesome. Cool. Let's see. I think we maybe got one more in. Do you guys ship to Canada?
We do.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And can we get a list of materials used in this presentation and the order numbers for all the material steps? Yeah, shoot me an email, productsupport@whitmix.com, and I will send you a list of all of the materials that I use for these dentures.
Everything
Again,
except for the model LC is included in the kit.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's about all we have got for today. So thank you, everybody. Huge thanks to Casey for joining us. I think you are a really good addition, and really glad you could join us for this. So otherwise, hope everybody has a great weekend. And if you need anything, you know where to find us. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
And also, keep in mind we've got another training series coming up next week that is Temporary Design 101. That will be with Corey, Bryce, and our special guest Brandon Smith from 3Shape. And Monday will be Scan and Design. Wednesday will be printing and tips and tricks, and then post-processing the temporaries. So if you got time, come and join us for that. And with that, thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.